So I'm pretty sure Simone is going to join us. So
Well, we have quorum now, so
yep. I was just going to give her one more minute.
yeah.
It's fun. It's the second go around. I'm going to start to associate fall, back to school, back to this, back to Warrant Committee, right?
Back to Warrant Committee. Exactly. All right, great. So I'm going to call to order. Just do a roll. Gavin,
Here.
Nina,
Here.
Kevin,
Here.
Marty,
Here.
Sarah,
Here.
Simone,
Here.
and Dick.
Here.
So Dick is our newest member. Maybe you could take 2 minutes, Dick, and just tell people who you are, a little bit about what your involvement in town government has been in the past, that sort of thing, for those who don't know who you are.
Sure. I've been I've been living in town for 40 plus years. Um, Raised three kids and put them all through the school. They went all through the school system. I've been recently, I've been on the Carroll Community Center Building Committee last couple of years when Ford moved out of town. I've been chairing that committee. Um, Previous to that, I was on another committee concerning the Carroll School back in the early 2000s, actually a couple committees. So I've been at that for a long time. And I also was on a committee, I just don't remember the name of it, with when the Chickering School, it wasn't the building committee, but it was a committee previous to the construction of the Chickering School. It was a study committee. Yeah, that's that's what I've been involved in with the town, other than enjoying the town. For
Well, welcome. Misha's not here tonight, but she's this finally gives us 9 members. So we're at full complement going into the year. Um, I wanted to have this meeting, which I promise will be brief. I'm hoping it'll be 30 minutes or less, but just to have people touch base and to kind of reinforce that the season is starting. And there are a few pieces of business. First was I just wanted to remind people about the special town meeting on Monday. Um, I, I am not hearing much about any kind of organized opposition to the bylaw, but I think everybody can be surprised. I think the biggest concern right now is making sure we have a quorum for town meeting. There's a certain amount of anxiety that special town meetings in general don't always do that well. So please prompt your neighbors, friends, everybody to come. Uh, uh, Jim Repetti has promised it will not be a long meeting, so hopefully people will come, get the vote done, and be able to go home. I missed the moderator's meeting, but I've been told by Felicia that the planning board wants to sit on the stage for this meeting, which means that we've been bumped to the floor. Uh, but Simone and I will sit on the stage just to make the motion and second the motion. And that's the extent of our involvement this year for this meeting. So any questions, concerns about the special town meeting?
Is it at Mudge, Woody?
Yes. Yeah.
7 o'clock?
7 o'clock.
Okay.
And Jim thought it's possible everybody will be out by 7:45. That seems uh, somewhat optimistic, but you never know. Uh, There, as I said, I don't think anybody has identified any organized opposition right now, and given the kind of weight of the court cases and the financial repercussions if we don't pass the bylaw, feels like the weight of the sentiment is in favor of passing it. So hopefully it'll go through fairly quickly.
So for the rest of us, we can sit anywhere in the auditorium, or do we still need to be clustered near the front?
I'd say you can sit anywhere. I don't think that there's going to be any reason we have to be in any particular location.
Okay.
The planning board is really kind of asserting themselves on this one. Wants very much to kind of be the organizers of this. So I think it's likely they'll be the only ones really actively engaged, other than us kind of formally making the motion.
Okay.
All right, so I wanted to remind people that kind of with the turn of the fall, the activity of the liaisons is going to be kind of activated now. I was just looking at the list again, and Dick, you obviously don't have a liaison assignment, but I think it's going to be easy to reshuffle a little bit and have you tagged for a couple. The job of the liaison, to remind people, is to be in contact with the department board that you're connected to, and to open lines of communication between them and the warrant committee. And for the boards in particular, the issues have to do with anticipated articles that they're going to propose, typically non-financial articles that they're going to propose. For the departments, the goal is to provide a line of communication between the department, typically the department head, and the warrant committee around budgeting issues. So for some things, for some of the committees, like the school committees, it's helpful to listen in on the school board meetings and get a sense of what kind of issues are coming forward for them. We know that there's some capital budget issues. Primarily, Chickering is going to have a capital budget proposal. The regional schools, as far as I'm aware, do not have anything that they're anticipating. But I should mention that the Board of Selectmen this year have engaged, I think it's the Collins Group, a consulting firm around dealing with the capital requests, and also kind of helping the town make a more coherent plan around how to finance capital requests. So in that context, the capital requests have been expedited, and most of the departments already have their capital needs identified and have begun working through things. Capital budget has not actually engaged yet, but is about to. But it feels as though the whole capital process is going to be substantially earlier than it has been in recent years. That's a blessing. Last year, if I recall, it was touch and go whether the capital requests were going to be ready before we had to send the blue book to the printer. This year, hopefully, things are going to be done way in advance. So we're really, I personally am quite happy that this looks like it's going to move the process forward. So we'll have a much earlier look at what the capital impact is going to be, the impact of the capital requests are going to be on the budget than we have in recent years. Whether the town can sustain this momentum and do this every year is not clear yet, but this year certainly we're going to be in better shape, kind of anticipating the capital budget needs. The capital budget is looking substantial, however. It's going to be, I think Michael said somewhere in the order of $5.5 million have been in requests have been identified. So and the fuel island, which if you recall was postponed last year because of the issues around the fuel tank underground fuel tanks is back on. So there may be some controversy around that, or there's likely to be some controversy around that. I thought it would be good to have just a very brief update from the working groups about what their activities have been and kind of what people have been thinking. Nina, you and Mish kind of prepared a brief kind of.
Yeah, all the credit goes to Mish.
Okay.
But yeah, she wrote a brief summary, which I think because it just was succinct enough and she writes so well that I'll just read it. So sorry for reading. So for first of all, Woody, Mish, and I are the working group constituents for the revision of the Blue Book. So here's Misha's summary. The Blue Book Working Group has met several times and expanded to include Chris Costello and Michael Blanchard, the town administrators. Our focus is the scope of this fiscal year. For this fiscal year is to streamline the article building process to increase transparency and improve efficiency, and also to evaluate and rethink the content. We decided to hold off on major platform changes for now. Parentheses from me is that we were thinking of doing something a little more digital, so that we might immediately address the more urgent issue of process and content. Toward the first goal, we've adapted 2 forms to be used throughout the article development. One is an article request form, and it'll be filled out by the requesting department and has fields for a requester to provide background information and key contacts, and the form will help submission and clearly articulate requests, and it will help the Warrant Committee identify concerns and gaps in information earlier, which will be a huge boon to us, I think, and provide also commentary to the working group, and the working group will provide notes throughout the process. The forms were adapted by Chris Costello and Wayland, and they were successful there. And Chris agreed to be the clearinghouse for those forms. So they'll reside, I think, not just with the Warrant Committee, but he'll keep records of them as well. I think that's really the summary, Woody. I don't think I have anything. In addition, we had a little bit of delay in making some progress because of vacations and holidays, but we'll resume starting next week, which, by the way, Woody, tomorrow I think Mish won't be back. So I don't think the 1 o'clock meeting we were emailing about is viable.
All right, so maybe we can do it next week.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Great. So just to recap, the Blue Book Committee's been working on kind of some aspects of production as well as content, and we've been fortunate to have Chris Costello engaged, who has agreed with us that finding a replacement for the printer would be a useful activity. He's already started to reach out to various commercial printers and thinks we can get the printing done for literally half of what we were charged last year, and that the process can be a little smoother. So we're working on that, hopefully moving the whole article identification and writing process earlier. And then next week, we're going to meet talking about the content that goes into the warrant committee report and the capital budget report, which we were, I wouldn't say any of us were particularly thrilled about last year. So any questions, Marty?
Did Chris have any perspective on other towns and their ability to move away from these hard copy blue books and digitize it in any way, or is that totally verboten and nobody does it that way?
No, well, I think Winchester, is that correct, Nina? That's where I worked before.
No,
Uh,
Wayland, sorry.
Wayland, it didn't have an electronic blue book, but I think Chris is in agreement that moving towards a digital format as much as possible makes sense. Possibly we'll end up having to have at least some printed copies of the blue book, but the substantial amount of the production could be digital. The bylaw requires that the warrant be distributed to every residence in town, but that's much less ambitious project. That's simply printing the articles, and in less detail than what the Blue Book goes into. The Blue Book has the reports, some figures, and our recommendations and background on the different articles. The warrant itself is just literally the list of the warrants and their wording. So that has to be sent out by mail. But the Blue Book, there's no bylaw requirement that the Blue Book go out at all. It's simply a kind of a precedent that has been.
Is there a bylaw that says it has to be a blue book? Or is there?
There is no bylaw that says it has to be a blue book.
Okay, so
Kind of like the pink sheets from in the educational world. The cherry sheets. It's we printed on white paper last year, for you recall.
And the bylaw is a town bylaw, right? It's not a state or.
I think it's a state law, isn't it?
I don't believe so. I think it's a town bylaw,
Okay. I thought that for
but
some reason.
it may reflect a state bylaw as well. It is among our town bylaws.
That's a heavy burden to amend that or change that, I assume, right?
Well, I think who knows whether there'd be opposition or not, but it would require presenting it to town meeting and having a vote, an actual vote. So we couldn't do it this year. We could put it on as an article this year if we decide as a committee and with the select board to do that, but it would not go into effect for at least a year.
But I wonder if in the future there could be an objective of the town already, I think, is communicating quite a bit online with newsletters and all sorts of updates and things that you get in your email.
Yeah.
And they could send a link to this document for the vast majority of people and then just copy, use a copy machine to put some copies together for people that don't access computers or don't have that ability, and they can pick it up at the town hall.
Yeah, I think Chris would endorse that as a goal. I think the current situation is about half of the residents have emails. Simona, do you know the answer to this? I recall it as being about half the people get the current emails from the town, but that leaves about half the people who don't.
Okay.
I don't remember, but I think one of the things that I have in mind, and I don't know if this is just like a wishful thinking or what, is that instead of mailing the whole blue book, we can actually just like send a card, for example, with a QR code that then gets the link to the blue book, exactly to avoid the problem that we don't have the email of
Yeah.
all the residents, but we have a very good, well, we have the traditional distribution through the post office, in addition to email.
Yep. All right, great. So the other group that's been most active has been the group working on the guidance letter, which is Gavin, Marty, and Kevin. You all want to just summarize kind of where things stand, what the group's done so far, and kind of what the next steps are? Gavin, you want to start?
Sure. So we've met with Michael and Chris at the town hall. I think the general sentiment is yes, they do definitely uh, see some challenges, but they also are hopeful they won't be too large. But the big challenges are probably going to end up being healthcare and just generalized cost inflation. Um, the thought process is in context of the fact that there might be challenges is focusing on having sort of level service as the baseline, but then have both plus options if somehow the challenges aren't as big as expected, or minuses if somehow they are, which I know historically we haven't necessarily asked for minuses. And I think the general sentiment also is not just copy last year's budget, but actually try to take a pretty critical look at it to see if there are opportunities either for efficiencies or savings and not just roll over and add a couple percent. And from a process and budgetary standpoint, I think there's a general sentiment of the desire to improve it, make it more efficient, make it more standardized. I think there's still a little bit TBD on exactly what that means. And so hopefully the guidance letter will be able to reflect that general sentiment relatively punctually and enable a lot of these processes to kick off.
Marty, Kevin?
Yeah, I would just add to what Gavin said, and Gavin was a big part of suggesting the use of a template as opposed to leaving it somewhat open-ended from the letter to actually provide some kind of standard template that would provide enough background and information to inform the conversations that folks are having as liaisons with the particular departments, and also provide much more context for what exactly is the particular unit or business responsible for, what the history has been, what the size of the organization is, what has been the variability in terms of people and costs, and use that as the jump off point in terms of suggesting what their budget request might be for a particular period, and what they would look at if there was an ability to add to it. What would it be used for, and what kind of return, if you will, or benefit comes from that at the town level. And then in the event that the healthcare costs and general inflation and maybe some other things that are happening at the state level with respect to reimbursements materializes and there's a need to reduce budgets, we don't want to have to circle back again. We want them to be able to set the priorities and put forward what would those amounts be if we want to know about a 5% or a 10% reduction. So,
And just one comment on that is that I don't think I fully appreciated how late they find out what the healthcare costs are going to be. This is not something that of some of the big cost buckets, they find out with plenty of time to plan. It really will come last minute, right before town meeting. In which case, as Marty said, having some of those minuses in case it does come in bigger, already thought about, will make it so it's not quite as big of a scramble.
Yeah, if you recall, last year the operating budget was up, I think it was 2.5%. But that was in the setting of way lower than anticipated healthcare costs, insurance costs, and the sunsetting of some of the interest on the Chickering project. So I think there's a lot of reasons to be somewhat concerned about what the budget's going to look like this year. When Gavin and I met with Chris and Michael, I think they were, let's say they probably weren't as pessimistic as we were about what the budget was going to look like, but they were certainly concerned about kind of what the situation is. Maybe they're more optimistic that there's things to be cut than or more aware of things to be cut than we were. They were, I think, quite receptive to our interest in the process being more standardized. I think both of them were very much on board with the whole budgeting process being kind of looked at rigorously in terms of how the budgets are developed and how the communication occurs. I don't want to speak for the whole group. I found it annoying is probably too strong a word, but maybe it's not too strong a word. Annoying that when we met with the department heads as a group, there was no kind of standard as to what they presented to us and how they presented. And it was often difficult as a consequence of that to get a sense of how their budget really looked and what the issues and challenges were that they were kind of addressing. So I did have the sense that Michael and Chris would support us being more prescriptive about how the department heads present to us, and being a little more kind of demanding about how they organize themselves when they go through things.
Yeah, Woody, the only thing I think it's all great. My only suggestion over the email was we might want to think about, I mean, so I think sometimes a face-to-face meeting with the folks can go a long way in just building rapport. And especially if we introduce a template and we're doing it in person, we can have it projected and answer a lot of questions right then and there,
Yes. Yeah. I think maybe the next time our group meets with Chris and Michael, we could talk to them about how best to approach that with things that they may have thought about their own ideas about
Right.
to do something. But I definitely think that they're supportive of a more kind of organized approach to the way the communication occurs.
Right.
Other questions, comments?
I guess I would add at this point, Woody, and maybe you were going to include this in your comments. The Mass Municipal Association of Town Finance Committees is having their annual meeting in Sharon again this year. It's on Saturday, October 18th. And, I went to it last year. You did as well. And I think you would agree. It was very helpful and eye-opening, I guess, in terms of some of the comparability, if you will, that other towns experiencing the same kinds of issues that we talk about in these meetings and how they're dealing with it can be helpful for us and potentially Michael and Chris. I don't know if they are planning to attend, but anybody who's available on October 18th, it's, it ends like right after lunch, usually that day. It's not the whole day. And they've got some pretty good presentations that can be helpful to folks in understanding municipal finance and how these different towns are approaching the budgeting and financial processes.
Marty actually forwarded on a presentation, and I actually really enjoyed the presentation, but it was the instigation that I don't know if anybody else has looked at some of the surrounding town financials. But Medfield has very, very good financial reporting, financial policies, and just even reading their guidance letters and budget letters, how they're thinking about the future. It was impressive. Let's put it that way. I'd highly recommend if nobody's looked at them or somebody hasn't looked at them, that they are pretty thoughtful. I also looked at Holliston, Westwood, some of the other ones. Holliston wasn't bad, but Medfield was very good.
And Medfield seems to really stand out. They have lost their is it the town administrator, Marty, or the chief financial officer?
He was the assistant town administrator. I think he was the equivalent of Chris on this town.
Who seemed to be driving a lot of the process with one of their select board members. But I think my impression from our conversation is that Chris and Michael actually would like eventually to get to that level of kind of standardization presentation. I think they are aware it would take a while for them to bring the department heads up to speed and to get the systems in place and those kinds of things. We're operating from a position of kind of some instability based on the fact that we've been way short on staff in the townhouse for several years. But I do think Michael and Chris are would consider that level of financial reporting to be aspirational. Other questions, comments about that? I will say that as a consequence of the fact that the budget process seems to be proceeding more rapidly than in the past, I'm not sure yet what we're going to set up as a schedule for our own meetings with the department heads and board chairs. Last year, if you recall, we met with half the last week in February and half the first week in March. It would be nice to be able to do that earlier in February. And when I asked Michael and Chris about that, they both seemed open to that as a possibility, and they thought it's quite plausible that the budget will be in a position that we would be able to go through things in the necessary level of detail by at least mid-February. So once I get a better sense from Chris as to what he thinks their timeline is going to be, I'll try and work out a better sense for us as to what our timeline is going to be. What I'm now thinking is that we'll probably start having more regular meetings, kind of maybe the second week in October, and at least have check-ins with the liaisons about where things are, and probably have Chris and Michael come fairly early on to talk about what changes they're anticipating in the budgeting process and the timing. And sometime reasonably early in October have some communication from the select board and Michael about the capital budget and how that is evolving this year, since that's obviously going to have a big impact on things. Any other questions, comments? Great. So I'll see you Monday night. I'd love a motion to adjourn.
Hold on, can I just ask one question? And maybe I missed this because I missed a couple of meetings, but who is taking the minutes?
You are.
Not me.
Good
We
question.
need to have someone to write the minutes. I'm happy to help someone to understand how I was doing because my assistant, the Chat GPT, was working hard for that. But it's really like if anyone has Chat GPT or equivalent to that, it's a two minutes job, if that much.
So I did talk to Michael about ChatGPT as a standard for us, and he was supportive of that, and seemed to believe that that would be a reasonable standard that we could trial as a committee that could then eventually be applied to other committees, because a lot of committees are struggling with getting minutes done and kind of distributed. So maybe you and I should talk about that in the next few days about trying to kind of make a plan for that.
Mhm. Yeah, and the other thing that I want to double check is like, do we have to do anything regarding the goals and priorities that the Board of Selectmen set?
No, but as we look at the budget and the budgets come through to us, we should be aware of those priorities and at least interpret the budgets in light of those priorities as to whether or not they conform.
Okay.
But we aren't responsible for giving any formal feedback to the select board or doing anything else.
Mhm.
Marty.
Yeah, Woody, given what you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we now have a full complement of members, and you're probably going to modify that liaison assignment list. Can,
little
can
bit,
you can you recirculate that once you do it so that before we start having conversations, everybody
I'll
knows?
try and send it out in the next few days.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I want someone else to give the motion first, though. Marty, can you make a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
So moved.
Simone, you second?
Second.
Okay, Gavin,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Simone,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So I'll circulate the liaison assignments again in the next few days. We have a plan for the Blue Book Committee to meet, but I think we should probably try in the next week or two for the Guidance Committee to have, for the Guidance Letter Committee to have a meeting. And then probably second week in October, I'll set up a meeting for the committee to start the process of looking at the different departments. All right, thank you very much.
Great.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.